This is the instructional how-to video for the Andrew Beck concession trailer. We're going to go over the functions and operations of your brand new concession trailer, as well as the shutdown procedure and safety precautions. Start off up front, we have our access door. It's going to give you access to your plumbing and as well as your electrical. Right here we have our cable hatch for the power cord to run down through the flooring itself. That way it can be able to close the access door that's behind me itself, so you don't have to leave it open while in operation. We have our 100 amp panel. 100 amp panel for the breaker storage space. You have a 50 amp power cord. All of your circuits are 20 amp and they're all independent. I have everything notated here on the panel list itself and have everything metered out to balance the load out equally. We have our battery charger for the 12 volt lighting system and a water pump, and then we have our battery itself. As long as the trailer's plugged in, this battery charger is feeding power to the battery, keeping it charged. We have our water heater right over here and our fresh water tank itself. We do have tank valve, the drain valve for the tank itself, and then our winterization port. That way you can hook up an air compressor, be able to winterize this unit when it's going to be near freezing weather. There will be a separate video for the winterization process itself. Also, your manual crank for the scissor jacks. Definitely recommend a 3/4 inch socket and an impact gun for that operation to be a whole lot easier. We have our water pump here and our plug, which we have our water heater plugged in at the moment. We have our city water fill box. This is for filling the freshwater tank and use of the water pump itself. This is the non-pressure side. If you need to run any chemicals for cleaning the tank, as far as bleach or sanitizer, you can do so through this port. If you are providing or provided pressurized water, you can hook up your food grade water hose to this port itself and simply bypass the tank and pump. You can move this flap out of the way and be able to close and lock up so nobody can tamper with the water source at the trailer itself. Driver's side here down at the bottom, we have our waste drain valve for the waste tank itself. So you can hook up a 3/4 inch hose, or you can hook up a 3 inch RV hose. Once that hose is hooked up, this gate valve here pulls to the side and the water will flow out like so. Again, once your tank is hooked up, once you pull this completely out, it will open up and dump everything out. Once you're finished, do make sure that you put this cap back on after removing the hose for transportation. While we're here on the driver's side of the trailer, let's step back and well, you can see everything down this one side itself. We have your 3 7,000-pound torsion axles made by Dexter. Here at the rear of the axles, we do have our exterior GFI plug. We're going to show the operation a bit. Both of your tanks are empty. However, I do have a live tank for demonstrational purposes. Again, your scissor jacks here on the rear, you can use a 3/4 inch socket to help level them down. Make sure that you put equal amounts of pressure on each one simultaneously, not all the weight at one time. Roller wheels here to protect not only the crankjacks, but also the gas lines that run under the trailer. Passenger side, rear of the trailer. I have all of the exterior lights working and on. concession window door open. As far as the flip-up counter, you'll definitely want to make sure you use two hands and use the middle portion of the flip-up counter to press in an upward position so that this pin, as you see here, rolls outward on the left-hand side of the trailer. This pin here on the inside will roll outward as well. As long as you can feel that notch, you're good to go in using the flip-up counter. We'll go ahead and go to the inside of the trailer. Your interior and exterior light switches located right here. You have your 30 by 96 stainless steel counter with work shelf below, upper shelf above it. We also have your fire suppression tank there as well. We have our control head as well right above that table, and the exhaust fan switches itself. We're here at the front of the trailer where the double door freezer is located. We are currently at -6 for the temperature. Inside you will see the manuals. So you have your manuals and feet and drain tube for the deep fryer for each one. Here's those. This is the wheels for the freezer that we don't use. You also have your paperwork for the fire suppression, the stove, the griddle, and the charbroiler, as well as the paperwork for the freezer and the lava rock for the charbroiler itself. All of the packaging in the freezer is in its original contents and packaging, so nothing is lost. And show this plug right here working. Here on the upper shelf, we have your worktop sink cover put out of the way so we can demonstrate the water system here in a moment. Then we come around to the passenger side. We're here at the plug for the sandwich prep itself. All of your pans up top. And your paperwork for the sandwich prep also. Refrigeration sitting at 35 degrees for the sandwich prep. Two doors that open up. We've got our plug here at the front of the window. Stainless steel counters here at the window and beside the window. Upper shelf above. This is what we had moved per your email. That way you have adequate space. As you can see, it opened up your floor space. Plug here at the very rear, right before the double door fridge. Double door fridge, we are sitting at looks like 32 degrees. Again, all of its packaging, paperwork, in its original contents as well. Do make sure that you take the time to read all of the paperwork for all of the equipment. That way you can properly maintain, clean, and service the appliances so that you get the full effect for their functionality. So I've got the hood system on. I have the gas running through the system. Let's go ahead and go over the fire suppression. So we have our control head itself that is live and ready to go. You will need to have this system tagged and certified once it gets back to your hometown state. But at the moment, if you were to pull the pin and swing the arm, everything that is in that tank would come running out of the nozzles itself. So that is the manual operation of the trailer itself. However, behind the filters, there is heat sensors behind each piece of equipment, rated at a certain temperature based upon that equipment itself. So it is always critical before you ever turn the propane on that you turn the exhaust fans on for two reasons. One, the propane itself. Two, once you get your equipment going, regardless of how cold it might be outside, you have to run the exhaust fans at all times. If not, that heat will build up and get stuck and pop the sensors, thus more setting the system and everything that's in that tank up there come running out of your nozzles, which will shut you down for business for at least a week. Now the filters are removable and will need to be cleaned and monitored daily. Again, removing them out is very easily done. Hot water with a mild soap or a mild degreaser. Make sure that you leave ample time for those to dry out through the evening. That way they're ready for the next morning. Always make sure the filters are back in place before running the exhaust fan. They're fully dry. And limiting the gaps, squeezing those filters together all the way through so you don't have grease going past the filters getting into the fans. The fans will need to be monitored at least quarterly, depending on how much grease you do clean out from the filters itself daily. What doesn't collect in the filters hits the drip tray and will run down to the very end where you have a grease cup. This cup is removable and will need to be monitored daily as well. So again, all of the equipment is in the on position, or in the off position. Let me take that back. Everything is in the off position. The gas is on, the hood system's on. As you can see, my pilot lights, I actually have flame burning off the pilot itself. And as I show you these pilot lights lit, when I go to the stove itself, all of these are in the off position. You never need to force light any of this equipment. What I mean by force lighting is turning this open and striking the lighter. That's how much gas is coming out by doing that. So always light the equipment in the off position. Of course, you're going to need lighters like this for lighting, and it's very simple. You just light the pilot itself on each one. And once that's done, then you can turn on your burners for a safe operation. Now, we have the burners themselves tied with the metal baling wire, as you'll see here. And eventually, due to excessive heat, this wire will break. Simply replace the wire running down through the burners, looping up and twisting with a pair of pliers and cutting off the excess. Do not remove this until it does break and then replace. As you can see, that will get very hot. So that is lighting the four burners itself. For the oven, this oven control knob, still in the off position. No lighter is needed for this part. But you have to remove the lower shield, and you would press in this pilot button here. While pressing the button, you administer the spark, which is like a grill lighter itself. And once you can see through the pilot hole that your pilot is lit, you're continuing to hold this button in for about 15 to 30 seconds. If you can slowly release off this button and see the pilot, then you are good to close this lower shield. For demonstrational purposes, I go ahead and turn the unit to 350 degrees, showing the burner actually working itself. Now in the oven, you have one rack and 5 different positions to choose from. The heat's coming from the bottom as well as the sides and the rear of the unit itself. Do make sure that once done, you do turn that unit back off. Also, there is a drip tray for anything that spills over out of the burners itself. I will have this in one of the refrigeration units. Same thing for the charbroiler itself. Coming over to the charbroiler, as you can see, both pilots are sitting side by side. The flames are lit. We have everything in the off position. And you simply just put the lighter in between both of them and light. Very simple process. Then you can open your burners up once the pilots are actually lit. These are removable for cleaning itself, and for transportation we'll make sure that these are put up in a safe place so that they do not damage your finished product. Alrighty, we're coming around to the 36-inch griddle, and it's the same thing as I've been mentioning. Everything stays in the off position. You'll take and light from below. At the end of the flexible looking hose is where your pilot is going to light. Now propane is heavy, so it will fall down, so all you have to do is have the light right below it. Same thing for this one, and same thing for the one back here. And once you can see that those pilot lights are lit, then you can turn those burners on. Unfortunately, you do have to kind of crawl down below the unit to see this function, but it's best to do that rather than assume, because if the pilot is not lit, this cavity would fill up with gas and potentially light off of this, which would create a big ball of fire. You do not want that to happen. There is a grease pan for the griddle itself, that what remnants you clean off, run in the pan, monitor that cup each day. There's manufacturer's oil that you'll need to clean off of this unit itself. Do make sure that you follow the processes for cleaning that griddle plate and seasoning it in properly. Now for the fryers, I'm going to go ahead and show the function of them, and then I'll turn them off and explain how to light them. So you see my heat shield's in place, pilot light or thermopile is lit, and this is in the on position. So at this point I have full control for the thermostat to open up to the desired temp that I need here for that burner to be in place. So I'm going to turn this unit back off meeting the red dot. Let the thermopile kind of go out. So on startup procedure itself, my following process would be, so on off, making sure that you can hear that this thermostat is connecting with the gas valve. At that point, then you would rotate to where the L meets the red dot and allows you to push in. You have to push in and hold here while administering fire to the thermopile. Once your thermopile is lit, continue to hold this pilot button in place for generally about 15 to 30 seconds till it gets red hot. Once it's red hot, you will slowly release this button. If you can release this button and your thermopile is still activated or on, then at that point you can rotate to the on position, and when needed you can turn your thermostat on. Very simple process, just hard to do with holding the camera at the same time. If you remove this shield to be able to see the thermopile, just make sure this shield goes back in place. It is it's kind of hot right this second, but it does unclip and remove and easily goes back in place. Also, the drain tube that's in the packet in the freezer threads into here, opens that valve and allows this product, everything in the vat itself, to drain out. You never can transport this unit with any oil in the vat, as it will splash out and go onto the floor itself. And again, at the end of the day, just making sure that every piece of equipment is in the off position so that when you go turn the gas off, nothing is on. Same thing for this unit as the first unit. On, off, on, off. To the L, pushing in, light. Once lit, hold for another 15 to 30 seconds, slowly release, allowing that gas to come out, rotating to the on position. You have your baskets in each fryer, and again the crumb for poking the crumbs through for when you are draining the system itself. Very simple process to follow. Just want to make sure that everything is safe for each and every application. So we'll go ahead and turn the gas off itself. Always shutting the valve off and then the tank itself. Now you have two tanks, two-stage regulators. You only need to run one tank at a time. Again, you got a valve here, valve here. So the most critical thing when starting up, again, making sure that everything is in the off position inside, turning the exhaust fans on, turning your tank on, activating to this shut-off valve. At this point, whatever you have to do to make sure that whoever is turning this gas on is fully aware and able to pay attention to this valve or the other valve, whichever one you're using, is the most critical thing you can do on startup. The reason being is if there was a leak, you are going to catch it here at this moment. With everything in the off position inside and the exhaust fans on and you've charged the line to this gas valve, when you open this valve, you will hear a rush of gas, just a charge in the line. You should hear nothing else. If you hear repeated gas coming through this two-stage regulator or the other one, immediately shut off, go back inside and inspect, making sure everything's in the off position. If so, then at that point, that means this piping that runs under the trailer could be possibly damaged from maybe road debris, whether it's a tire off of a semi or a block of wood. If it hits at the right angle, it can damage this line and break it, causing a huge pile of gas under the trailer, which is highly explosive. Again, propane is very heavy, so it's going to fill from the bottom coming up like pouring water on it itself. But again, whoever is turning the gas on, they follow this simple procedure and listening for whichever gas valve they are turning on. They should hear a charge of the line, and that's it. No immediate gas rush. And once you have all of your equipment going, it's common to hear the gas coming through because everything's in the operational position. But on startup, never should hear gas coming through there. Since we have the gas off, we can go ahead and turn the exhaust fans off itself. They are no longer needed. If you want to open the roof vents, they manually crank up and down. Do make sure that they are fully shut before you go into transportation. If you want to use your AC unit, you can simply rotate the dial to the AC side or the heat side, whichever one accommodates to the climate that you are choosing. That is for the front unit and the rear unit. As long as you have ample power, you can run everything all at one time that we have running in this trailer. Meaning the fridge, the freezer, the sandwich prep, both ACs, both exhaust fans, the water heater, and the battery charging system. If you do not have the power to use or spare, then you will have to pick and choose to what you want to use. Thus more, the ACs would not be needed because the exhaust fan is on. Your refrigeration and water heater and battery charger is always needed. If you choose to turn the freezer off, you can simply hit the power button itself, which I highly recommend when unplugging the unit, turning it off, as well as the AC unit. You definitely want to make sure that the worktop sink cover is in a safe place for your desired trip. And before I go on, we're going to have the water pump switch in the on position. Before I ever put power to this unit, I made sure I had continuous water flow out of both hot water faucets. Let's see if I can get a clear reading. Let's see. So we're at 105 degrees and still climbing. Again, you want to make sure that you turn that water heater up to the desired temp that suits you. But before you ever put power to that unit, do make sure that you have continuous water flow coming out of both faucets at the same time. This is your city water fill box key for locking up the water fill box itself that is going to be hanging on faucet. As far as the sandwich prep, you can unplug it if you choose to do so. Plugs right here, very easily and accessible. And again, also the fridge here at the back, making sure that you turn it off. So we want the very minimal power draw upon startup itself. You do not want to shut down the business in the evening with everything running full blast. So exhaust fans, ACs, refrigeration off, unless you're leaving the refrigeration running through the night, as well as your interior and exterior light switches. I want to make sure that that door is locked and clasped for safety. You'll be able to lock up, making sure that your crank jacks are in the upright position, gas being in the off position. Always make sure that your lug nuts are tight, and once a year you will need to remove this grease cap or the rubber grommet. There's a Zerk fitting for the grease gun. That grease will need to be applied to the bearings to protect the axles themselves. Again, the flip up door will need to be able to be locked, shut down, and then also the flip up counter pressing upward allows that counter to roll to the downward position. We will make sure there's pins in the doors that can be locked for safe transportation. Definitely want to make sure that your power is unplugged, which I am in my shore power itself. I'll unplug here shortly. Making sure that your hose for the fresh water is disconnected and that is locked, as well as the waste drain valve is disconnected and that valve itself shut. We thank you for taking the time to view this video. Wish you the very best in this process and hope that this video helps any and everybody that is using the trailer to have a safe and functional concession. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We thank you for your business. Have a great day.